Most skills only get an XP buff during double XP week, but there are two skills, Invention and Archaeology, that work differently. Jagex was rightfully concerned that people would hoard level 9 items and damaged artifacts for double XP weeks if they gave double experience, so instead they increased the rate that you level up invention items and prospect for artifacts. In this video, I find a way to take advantage of this and harvest over 350 archaeology artifacts in an hour. Using Invention, we can turn these into straight cash, making well over 25 million GP per hour. I've also found a more chill AFK method that gives really good archaeology XP and over 15 million GP per hour. The prices may fluctuate due to this video, but there's another method I'll share soon that should help keep them stable. This method is all about precision. In archaeology, the higher your precision value, the faster you excavate artifacts. This value is doubled when double XP week is on. We'll use the Master Archaeology outfit, a Maddox of Time and Space, although the Tony Maddox is better if you can afford it, a Brooch of the Gods, and the Flow State Relic, and then finally a high-spec monocle. All of these items increase precision one way or another. The monocle adds 20% Maddox precision and works with double XP. The Master outfit increases Maddox precision by 7%, and the Maddox gives a nice baseline precision value. The Flow State Relic adds 20% to base precision and prevents you from receiving soil. The Brooch of the Gods is helpful if you're following the Charm sprite. I also have a Grace of the Elves for the Porter buff so I don't need to bank, and a 120 cape for the perk buff. In my inventory, I bring a Cosmic Accumulator for sprite charge and an XP Capacitor 5000 for some extra GP. I use a Water Fiend Familiar because it has a 5% chance to double every artifact I get. For the high GP method, we will be gathering as many Venerator crossbows and daggers as possible. When level 1 to 70 archaeology artifacts are disassembled, they give historic and classic components in bulk. It's possible to package these using an inventor's workbench and sell them on the GE. I start off by loading my preset, then I head to Carrot Et using my outfit. I activate a Water Fiend and 2 monocles. Monocles cost about 600k each, so they're not worth using if you're very AFK, but for this method they're helpful. After that, I simply chase the sprite around and collect artifacts, banking them every time my inventory is full. This is the actual speed. I haven't sped this clip up at all. I wasn't exaggerating about 350 artifacts per hour. The buffs stack up for insanely fast excavating. You'll notice my Water Fiend also fills up with artifacts as I go. After a full hour, I got 352 artifacts, about 200 Third Age Iron and Zerosian Insignias, 7k Invention Charge, and 2k Double XP Week tokens. I'll go through the profit and XP breakdown at the end of the video. I like this method because it works for low-level players too, just at a slower rate. Next is the more AFK, higher XP per hour method. Artifacts level 111 and above disassemble for either time-worn or vintage components. Like historic and classic components, these can be packaged on an invention workbench and sold on the GE to other players. The issue with high-level artifacts is they cost a lot of GP to restore. I did a bunch of testing with this and determined that the Praetorian robes and staff from the Praetorian remains in Carrot Et are the most efficient spot in terms of time invested and GP spent versus received. I'm able to restore the equipment for about 450k per piece by slow buying materials on the GE. Each piece I disassemble gives me about 1.1 million GP of components on average. I use all the same buffs as before, but also bring some porters in my inventory so I can recharge my Grace of the Elves as I AFK. If you have the upgrade for the Grace of the Elves, then you don't need to worry about carrying extra porters. To get to the spot, we head past the Venerator daggers and into the Praetorian war table. The hotspots are in the room next to the table. I start by following the sprite to lock in a 10% XP buff, then I just completely AFK. With a high-spec monocle, you'll average an artifact once every 3 minutes. When 3 minutes is up, click spacebar once and you'll automatically start gathering the next artifact. If you're more AFK, then don't use the monocle as it will just waste GP. Over the course of an hour, I collected 21 artifacts on average, accounting for the Water Fiend doubling effect. After each hour, I bank, empty my Water Fiend, and start fresh. Now for the XP and profit breakdown. Overall, this was actually a really nice method. I thought the low-level harvesting would feel boring and repetitive, but I quickly got into a rhythm and actually had a lot of fun. It helped me get closer to some of my final archaeology achievements, like restoring 2,500 artifacts, and would work really well for people who need more artifacts for guild tier unlocks. My biggest issue with the low-level method was the large amount of judgment I felt every time a player ran by and went inside. Low-key, I felt like a bot, but hopefully they'll see this video and understand. After restoring over 400 artifacts, I received a total of 160k XP, which comes out to about 90k XP per hour, excluding the excavating XP. It's not really worth it for experience in archaeology, but it does give good GP, so you weigh it how you want with the XP method I'll go over next. The input cost to restore all the artifacts was 43.5 million GP, although we got 1.4 mil back from the materials received while excavating after taking out the porter costs. I am including the time to restore the artifacts in GP calculations, as about 1/3 of the total time is actually spent restoring. This is a nice break from active harvesting, as restoring is very low effort, so you get about 30 minutes of AFK restoring time for 1 hour of harvesting. Next, I disassembled all of the restored artifacts. After disassembling all 401 artifacts, I got a total of 6,660 historic components, 300 classic components, 5 vintage components, and 3 time-worn components. Their combined value is approximately 81 million GP. The double XP week tokens can be exchanged for oils of enchantment, which are currently selling for about 12 mil GP, although I expect this number will drop soon. That comes out to 5 mil worth of oil an hour on top of all the other GP we're making. I'm going to exclude the XP capacitor charge value as it offsets the charge drain costs. All in all, after adding up all of the inputs and outputs, that puts us at about 29 million GP per hour. Pretty solid for a skilling method. Let's take a look at the high-level artifacts next. I gathered over 100 high-level artifacts to restore. While this method is a bit less GP per hour than the first one, it gives much better XP and it's AFK. If I had to pick between the two methods, I'd choose this method almost every time. The downside is it can get pretty boring if you aren't doing anything else on the side, since you do literally nothing except hit spacebar every 3 minutes and occasionally recharge your Grace of the Elves. The base XP for restoring the artifacts is 36k, but I boosted that up using my premier artifact, the Desert Pantheon aura, a full Pulse Core buff, the Clan Avatar, the Master Outfit, and Incense. There are a few other buffs like Inspire Effort you can use, but this was good enough for me. After restoring over 100 artifacts, I got 5.2 million XP, which is about 1.05 million XP per hour, excluding the excavating XP. I did get a total of 2 million XP excavating the combined 500 artifacts, most of it from the high-level spot. It cost me a total of 48 million GP to restore all of the artifacts, but again, I got some GP back from materials received. Next, I disassembled all of the artifacts. The level 111 artifacts give either 8 time-worn or 8 vintage components, no in between. The vintage components are worth much more since they are in higher demand for PVM perks, but time-worn have a useful property most players don't know about yet. Make sure to sub so you can learn more about that when my next video drops. I also averaged about 2k double XP tokens per hour here, which adds 5 mil per hour from oil, but again, I expect this portion of the GP per hour to go down. Because we're inside Card Et, you also have a small chance of receiving Inquisitor staff pieces. I didn't include this in the GP per hour calculations, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. After disassembling 102 artifacts, I received a total of 432 vintage and 384 time-worn components. Their combined value is approximately 116 million GP. Adding everything up, it comes out to about 20 million GP per hour. Not bad for a 1 million XP per hour AFK training method. But then something weird happened. I went to double check my earlier GE price checks, and large time worn crates were selling for 22 million GP each, 880K per component instead of 40K, making the method closer to 95 million GP per hour. I won't clickbait with this because I'm confident that price will fall drastically after I release this video, but I did some research to figure out why the components are so much. I've solved the mystery, but I'm not going to share it until this video gets at least one like.